Hi everyone, welcome to the third part of the Black Cat tutorial video. First part was where we put down that single eye. Second part showed us working the ears and then down over the top of the head down towards the nose and muzzle. There is more work to go on that closer to the end. Here you just see, just starting off, I've just decided to put in those eyebrow whiskers. I just felt like doing them, so super sharp pencil. Just go in and slight bit of pressure at the base of your whisker, and then just be confident, sweep the sharp pencil away from you and lift as you come away. Now I will go over this because they're quite bright, the whisker lines, and I want them a lot softer. So remember, as we did with the ears, how we put our lights down first and then we can go in with a darker colour. We can go in with one of the Caput Mortem or the indigo blue or the black, just to soften those lashes, brows, whiskers. Here you go, you see here I'm going in over with black pencil, and it just softens them back and makes them finer, softer, gentler, more of a hint rather than really obvious, let's say. We'll do the same when we do the other main whiskers on the cat as well later, because if you look on the picture, they're not white whiskers, they're not black whiskers, they're not grey, they've got lots of different colours where the light hits them, and there's reflections, there's lots of the blues and pinks through those main whiskers as well. So just a little bit more touch up onto those eyebrows, and then we will be moving over to start work on the back of the cat, the main body, main fur, and those bright highlights across the back. And it's going to show you as well, once we get going on there, just how much or how rough this smooth paper is. Bit of a contradiction in terms there, but you'll see me put down a base layer of pigment over the whole area of that back. Here we go now, and I'll zoom in a bit as well to get it started off, but you'll see then just how much pressure and how many layers I need to build to try and soften out and eradicate that grainy, gritty tooth of the actual paper. But you see, without that grainy, gritty tooth, we wouldn't be able to get as many layers down, so it works for us and it works against us. So again, like I said, I'll do the little video as well, a little support video that shows how I transfer the line drawing when using that indentation process using a stylus. So here I'm going straight in with the sky blue, side of the nib. It's the biggest area on the nib that I can get the pigment down quickest. And just laying down my first foundation over that back. As we look at it, I'll call it the back left haunch, and then the real furry one, we'll call it the back right haunch when we get to that one as well. So I'm just mapping that one in with the sky blue. And then it'll be a case of, same as we did on the ears, we'll start to just build layers on top using, just sped it up a little bit, using scumbling technique and just lots of tiny little strokes, using more pressure from the end of the pencil just to build the layer and soften it. So I just sped it up just to show, literally I'm just popping in foundation layer of that sky blue all the way over both haunches of the cat, down that right hand side. That's where most of that light is hitting, from that side direction. Obviously the left hand side and under the chin is in a lot of shadow, so a lot of that will be left black, or we'll lift some of it up and we'll use our darker colours and the black to knock it back again. Hopefully you're understanding my term of knock it back now when I use it in all my videos. I literally mean that if you've got something bright, you just knock that colour or that brightness back with a mid-tone or a darker shade. So there you go. We've got our base layer down, and now I'm going in using more of the nib of the pencil now. And I am scumbling backwards and forwards in little small circles with medium pressure, just building the layers until I fill that tooth. Like I say, I will zoom in on it, and you'll see, I'll zoom in a few times during the process so you can see sort of each stage, sort of how much grit or grain has gone or how much there is left to kind of smooth out or eradicate. As you see now, I've actually got my glassine paper in place now as well. I didn't use it quite as much when I was working just up on the cat. If you're working on the Colourfix Smooth, that's another thing I will say. Just be careful of your hands. I'm a bit terrible. I do keep some snacks in the studio and you can get grease on your hands. And this paper will suck up that grease as well, and you'll get real oily, greasy marks on there. You can lift them off, but it's best just to keep your hands clean. Use that glassine or your protective paper. So whilst I was talking there, you can see I have zoomed in, and now you can see the roughness that I was talking about. So I've got that first top highlight in using my sky blue. Now I'm going in and I'm just using the dark indigo just to build another layer, and we've got some undulations in the fur there, so we've got some depth of shadow. It's not just going to be one flat highlight area of the sky blues and whites. It has got the dark indigo running through there as well to break it up and give it some contour and some depth to the fur. So this is going to be sort of like 1, 2, 3. This will be the third or fourth layer now of pencil going down on there. As I say, it's about a medium pressure. And quite loosely, yes it is scumbling, but it is quite loose. I'm doing a little circular motion, just filling it in, but I am working quite loosely and quite quickly. Should be able to see now literally how that, and see, sometimes I'll go in, my main motion is usually anti-clockwise with the pencil. How to think about that then. But you'll see every now and again I will go clockwise. I'll change the pencil's direction because obviously the tooth, I'm working it in one direction. If I go just anti-clockwise all the time, I need to turn it around every now and again, so I'm going back on myself just to fill the tooth in the other way in case I've pressed it down in one direction, if that makes sense. It just gives a more even fill to the tooth and to the build. It's a bit like if you imagine velvet that's got a really long nap on it. If you press it all in one direction, it'll go flat. If you then push it in the other direction, you get then the nap going against itself and it's really sort of puffed up. So we want a mix of the two to completely flatten and fill that nap or that tooth. And so if you're doing this on a different type of paper, work with what you know about the tooth of that paper. You should know how many layers you can use on that paper that you're using if you're not using this Colourfix Smooth, and just adjust your layers accordingly. Follow the same principle. You need to get your highlights in, you want some of your dark indigos and some of your mid blues coming through as well, but just make sure you leave enough tooth as you're working to get your real highlights in and any texture details for your final layers as well. Just make sure you leave enough surface there for you to be able to add those later on. So okay, so I've used the sky blue, then I've gone in with the dark indigo. Now I'm going in with the white because it's quite cool lighting over on that left haunch as we look at it. So still the same motion with the pencil, small circular motion, sometimes left to right, but mainly circular as I'm building. So there's not much fur direction up over on that haunch. We'll add a tiny bit, some hints of it with our indigo. Mainly it's just a highlight area. You see there an example of me going from anti-clockwise to clockwise, back to anti-clockwise. Okay, I've just sped it up again now, because you should have the principle there of what I was doing, so just sped it up a tiny bit. It's the right haunch. When we got onto the right haunch, it took so many layers and so much patience. I honestly thought I'd never get there, building and trying to get the softness of the fur, because it's they say if you're working on suede mat board or velour, it lends itself perfectly to that fluffy fur. So as soon as you put a couple of pencil strokes down, it already looks fluffy. Now this stuff, it's so gritty. It's not even like pastel matte. I can't even compare it. It's just, I don't know. Which you can see now, that initial surface, that initial layer below my pencil there, that's gritty. To try and get that to look like soft, fluffy fur, it was not designed to really sort of like enhance or enable you to achieve that effect quickly. It's all about your own patience, your pencil work, your skill, and just building the layers and keeping going. Don't give in. I got close to giving in with frustration of like, this isn't going to work. It's like, well, yeah, it has to. So I'm going in here. I've got the indenter in blue there as well. Little touches now. Sinking back some of that indenter in blue that I have popped in there, and sinking back some of the indigo. Now when I go in with the black and the dark, I'm going in quite lightly. Just a hint of the warm grey there as well, just to soften back some of those blues. And just to break up the brightness of the white as well. It just brings it from warm into cool, into warm into cool as well, across that haunch. Okay, so coming to the end of our initial work up on that left haunch, and we'll flick down now. Here's a few of the pencils that I am using now over on that right hand side. So again, it's just continuation. It's exactly the same pencils. We've got our dark indigo, we've got our sky blue down already. We'll use our white, we've got our Kaput Mortem Violet, our Venetian Red. We'll have some light flesh as well. And we'll just, I'm putting in some of the darks there first of all. Same as I did up on the other one, I popped in some of the dark indigo first of all. But as I say, the texture on this right haunch is something that you just need to be patient, just build up as well. You should be able to see here as well where I've gone over with my sky blue initially. You'll see the indentation lines made from the original line drawing transfer as well. So you can see those there. Those are there as a guide. Not every line is there, it's just your main key lines breaking up the fur. It's entirely up to you sort of how many lines you put in or don't put in. Bit of a wiggle on the camera there. I think I was sort of showing the difference between how much I've put the pigment down on that top left haunch as opposed to where I need to go to on the right haunch. So it's a bit warmer over on this side, so I'm going to use more of the warm greys. So where I use the whites for the main highlight over on that left haunch, I'm just using warm grey 2 and the warm grey 3 over on this side. Again, you can see I've got them sharpened up quite well as well. And I'm also working in the direction of the fur now. You see, I'm not scumbling over this side or going circular motions. I'm doing, because there is fur texture on this side to a degree. So I am sort of building the layers using some direction. See how the fur, it does curve down over that right haunch as well. Okay, with regards to speed, like I say, some areas of this I've sped up to 16 times, some of them are real time, some of them are double time. This one is quadruple time, so this is 4 times the actual speed that I was drawing at. Okay, so now in with some of that Venetian red, just some little flecks in there. And back in with our initial sky blue that we used. Someone did challenge me on this drawing actually, that I couldn't possibly see these colours in a black cat. It's like, well, I'm not quite sure what I was supposed to draw, because would I just do an outline and leave the cat totally black with no contours, no highlights? I do see these colours. Hopefully you guys will see some, if not all of these colours, reflecting, shining. I mean, like I say, cats that sit out in the sun all day, any animal that sits out in the sun that's got black fur, then in the summer that fur is going to shine reddish colours. It'll still have cool tones running through it. And like I say, the fur also reflects on its environment. You see here, I'm just repeating the process again. I'll come back in with my dark indigo over the top again, just breaking up some of those clumps of fur. I'm not drawing individual fur, I'm drawing in the shadows, and popping in the colours around. And I'm also thinking about the shape of the cat as well. It's sat on its haunches, so it's got that real bony hip bone is sticking up there at the back, and where it's hunched up, it's got the fur protruding out over its side, over its ribs as well. So we want to make sure it's dipping in and out. Back in with a bit more some violet and a little bit of our black, just breaking up that soft edge. Gently, gently building the layers. A little bit more definition with each layer, and definitely a little bit more softness on that grainy paper with each layer as well. Like I say, this is the same principle that we'll use down through the whole of the right side of this cat as well. I think when I was drawing this and actually watching it back again, I had a little children's nursery rhyme going through my head, and it was, here we go round the mulberry bush, mulberry bush, mulberry bush. And I just felt like I was, here we go round the cat again, the cat again. Sorry for my singing. I just felt I went around and around and around. It's like, am I ever going to get this fur looking like fur? Is it going to look fluffy? Is it going to look black but with highlights, with the colours? It's the texture there. Oh, it's so frustrating. So if you do get frustrated, it's part of the process. It's normal. You're fine. Just push on through. Okay, regards speed now, this is actually sped up to 8 times my actual drawing speed, just so you've got an idea again. Okay, so we've done pretty much on that haunch. We'll come up and touch it up later on. Now I just want to get in. It's quite important just to get in the rest of the cat now as well. So don't bring, like I say, the whole area to completion. Bring it close to, then you can make adjustments near the end. So down this front area, right hand side, there's a lot more of the pinky reds down here as well. So again, you'll see I popped in some light flesh over the top of that initial sky blue. Going over now with my Kaput Morton Violet. So remember your dark indigo and your Kaput Morton Violet are your darks, and they'll go into and out from your darkest area, which is your black shadows. And then they'll lift away into your midtones, which is your Indanthrene blue and your Venetian red mainly. And then that'll lift up into your highlights, which are your light flesh, your sky blue, and ultimately then your greys and your white. You'll see me going with my finger every now and again. I do go in, literally blend it a tiny little bit. It sort of works on the paper. Not usually one of my methods just to use a blender, my finger, or a tortilla stump or anything like that. It's just I happen to do it 2 or 3 times on here. I think it's where, as I mentioned before, the pigment of the pencils was crumbling off, and sometimes if I see a little bit of loose pigment there, I'll just rub it in rather than brushing it away or losing it. So again here we're still working at 8 times speed, so you can just see how many times I'm just going up and down, just that one fine little area of the fur. The same with pastel matte really. Every time you think you've done enough layers, just put in another layer. You can always put in another layer. Don't try and press too hard to get there to cut out the amount of layers that you put in, because just by pressing hard means you're just crushing the tooth, and also you're not getting that nice blend. You'll get obvious that you put down then blue and then red and then black. You'll get stripes. You won't have that lovely blend and build of colour that gives that softness and all the colours showing through. You can't cheat with colour pencils. Well, there's no such thing as cheating. You use whatever methods you like. But like I say, if I wanted to do this in pastels, pastel pencils, it would be so much quicker. I'm sure I could probably achieve this in, I don't know, 2 to 3 hours, possibly 4 hours if I was doing this in pastels, which is frustrating because obviously, you know, sort of like 12 hours of doing it with colour pencil, and yet we're not accredited with the same sort of recognition in the art world as being a recognised archival professional art medium. So hopefully in time we'll beat those critics down and keep proving and astonishing them with our CP work. Okay, so now we're bringing back down over this right hand side, down around the right hand side of the chest. Just mapped in a little bit more using the sky blue, going in with our dark indigo, popping in some of our real blue highlights using that Indanthrene blue as well. Just mapping in where, like I say, where those little valleys are in the fur that dip in. You want the shadow and colour in, and then it'll come out into the highlights on the outer edge of the ripples of the fur. So once again, now you can see how rough that surface is as opposed to the areas that we've already worked up to the top right. It's strange, this Colourfix Smooth as well, is you feel like it's clogged up quite early, but you can still feel the grit, so you can still keep getting the pencil down there. Okay, it's got a tiny bit off camera there, but I was just popping in some of the mauve. A little bit of the mauve and a little bit of autumn violet down around here. I know now as well, like I said, I can go in quite harsh using the whites down here just to highlight that area. But I know that I can go in over the top like I am now with Venetian red and just soften it back. And I can go over it with the warm grey or the light flesh as well, just to soften it. I've actually used a little bit of blue there just to soften back that white. So again, for the sake of repeating myself, you just know that each time here, I've got the black out again now, when you've got colour and highlights down on here, you know, doesn't matter how bright or how light you go, you can just go back in and knock it back with your darker colours, and especially with your black, you can take it back, like I say, so it looks like the original virgin surface. You'll especially notice this as well when I'll pop some colour and highlights around underneath the chin, just sweeping down around under the front of the bib of the cat. And then I'll knock it back with black, and that is a real, well, you can see here I'm just starting to pop it in here now, using the Venetian red and some highlights, and then I'll knock it back in a little while with the black pencil or the indigo, or you can put more some violet, your darks. So don't worry that you've put in too much highlight in an area, you can take it back out again. And again here in a minute as well, you'll begin to see where that indentation tool, where I marked in those whiskers early on. Do you see how I've highlighted that area quite a lot? Now just knocking it back with the blue. Getting all my colours in there in balance before I add my the shadows back in to break it up. So yeah, I've got the autumn violet going over the top now, working my way back to the darks. As you know, I've gone back to the stage on that right hand side of the body because I brought it up to a certain point, but I needed something in place on the next, on the chest, the next part forward. I needed that in place before I could go back there and start to finish that off. If I brought that to completion without the front part there, I just don't feel I could balance it properly. I need the next step in place. But then again, I always remember I work from the back forward, so I put my fur in that's furthest away and then work forward so you can keep flicking it out over the top of the fur that sits behind it. That's how it would work naturally. So this really is a simple case of just repeating what's gone before. Just adjust it to suit perhaps the slightly different texture of the fur that we're trying to recreate. Obviously I'd say the fur up over the haunch is possibly about 1 inch long. As we come down over the front of the chest, Partly because the way the cat's lying as well, that fur is going to be a little bit more pronounced, looking slightly longer. One, because the front of the cat is closer to us, but also from the angle it is going to be looking a tiny bit longer, the fur length, than it is back on those haunches. Okay, so remember I said about we were going to knock this back. I've slowed this down now, so we're going at real-time speed now. So this is the speed I was going up with all of the previous, but I just had obviously sped up the video. You get more of an idea here now of the exact speed I am working at. Still flicking my eyes backwards and forwards to that reference. And it's funny as well, as frustrating as it was creating this piece, I'm really excited to try and work on this surface again. So it is very frustrating that obviously our UK suppliers are out of stock until April. 3 months. Not good. I have looked at getting it ordered in from America, which I can get, and you guys pay a lot less per sheet for it over in America, but then of course I need to pay approximately $60 to courier 10 small sheets, and small sheets I mean like A4 8x12 sheets, and then I've got import duties. It's just, one, it's not cost effective, two, I don't work that small, I need bigger sheets anyway, and three, I've just back ordered about a year's supply from Jackson's now, so when it does finally arrive I should have enough to last me. But then again, I have got workshops as well coming up teaching the polar bear, so I am going to need some of it. So you see here, just slowly adding soft layer, taking back where there's too much highlight in. But I'm not going in and pressing really hard, I'm still just shading. I'm not adding texture here yet, I'm still just shading. Okay, just softening down this edge now underneath the chin. And so I've gone over that area 3 or 4 times now with that black pencil, so I'm not just trying to knock it back all in one go. It's just nice and gently, nice and gently. And now you've got to the principle of what I was doing there. Just sped back up again, so we're up to 8 times speed again now. Back in with that mauve pencil, or mauve, as you say in the US. A little bit of the dark indigo, a little bit of my Caput Morton Violet, and then softening the edges, going back in with the black. Again, see, I'm just holding it quite loosely, quite sketchily. Breaking it up and softening the lights. Use my finger there again, just to push the pigment in a little bit and soften it back, because that area across the front is quite soft. And then really where we had what initially on that left hand side, lower left hand side underneath the chin, we started off with Venetian red, warm grey, Caput Morton violets, gone over it with the black, gone over it with the Molten Violet again. Softly, softly, softly. So we will go in and work the muzzle and that nose area in detail later on near the end of the piece as well. A little bit of light flesh there. You can see why some of the frustration comes in, because you just seem to be repeating yourself over and over. Like I say, when I've zoomed in and I've shown you the texture, then there's no way could you leave it at that stage or just put in a few hints of the lines. You have to work this way to build up the softness and the smoothness of the fur. It's quite fascinating actually if ever you get to go to colour pencil exhibition. Obviously when you look at people's drawings online, especially if you're looking on your phone or on your laptop, there's a maximum size to which you can view everyone's picture. So there's no real difference in scale. So say someone's drawn something that's, I don't know, 6 inches square, then it looks the same on a screen as if someone drew something that was 20 inches square. But the amount of the difference of work, I've just zoomed in again here now, so you can still see little bits of the grain. How much that's smoothed out up over that top right hand corner though. Still some grittiness. And like I say, until you go to an exhibition, you can actually view people's work up close. You can't really get an idea of the scale, the amount of work that's gone into it, and obviously the bigger a piece is, the more detail you can get in as well. So I know clients come to me and they see a piece that I've done that's 16 by 20 inch and they want me to put the same amount of detail into something that's 6 by 8 inch. It's like, no, it's not possible. It really is not possible. There you can see those indentation lines on that close-up there as well. Okay, so I've got my comparison photos up next to me now. Remember I showed you the Be Funky collage? I said to you, pop your comparison pics up and then you can pull them up next to each other, and instantly it's showing me that I need to bring out more highlights on that right hand side, and it needs to be a mix of the white and the warm grey up over there. So where I thought it was lit too much already, nope, I need to go back in and add more. So make sure you're using that work in progress comparison picture at each stage, or as many stages as you possibly can. It really, really does help. Saves your brain, saves your mind, saves your eyes. It just helps by doing that spot the difference. It just means it really, really helps you to achieve that final effect. It's quite interesting when I watch these videos back now. So obviously I never used to do this. It's very interesting for me to watch my own process, because obviously when you are drawing, you're very blinkered. You tend to sort of not make things up as you go along, but you do adjust as you go along. If you come across, a slightly different texture of an animal that you haven't portrayed before, you just get on and you draw it. You find a way to depict it. But it's really interesting watching it back on video. To I don't know, it's quite fascinating actually. It's like, oh, is that me actually drawing that? It's quite interesting to see my approach. I'm pleased to say it actually makes logical sense how I've approached it. Okay, so where I zoomed in and we had that gritty tooth still showing through, that's pretty much eliminated now by all those extra layers of lights going back in now. The whites, the warm grey, now the light flesh. It's really starting to soften up around there now as well. So as we come down over the front of the cat's chest, a little bit of artistic license, but it's a mix of giving a hint that the fur's there, but also keeping in mind, I know that this piece needs to be framed behind glass, so I do need those lines to be showing through enough that it doesn't just disappear. So I've got that consciously in my head as well as I work this front area. I want to keep it soft, I want to keep it obviously emerging from the darkness. I don't want too much highlight in there. I don't want to take away from the original reference photo. So you see now I'm going in, I'm just working in the black into and out from the shadow area. So I'm just upping the contrast now using my white and black. Okay, so these are the texture details going in there now. I'm actually putting in fine hair strokes as well here now. So we're using our mid-tones and our darks down around the front underneath the chest. I do love that mauve purple. Sometimes it helps to decide which picture I draw as to which colours I can see in the image. Some images are really flat, and say it's a brown dog and it looks really brown, but sometimes you'll see a reference photo of the same dog, and because of the lighting or the environment you can see all the fleshy pinks and the purples, the mauves, the violets shining through, and it's like, oh, I'll choose that one above the flat brown one anytime. And the same with the blacks and with the whites too as well, really. Okay, so breaking down through now, using our black, just breaking down, really softening all of the pencil that we've got in there previously. Now it does start to look like those little highlights are coming out of the depth of that blackness, out of the shadow. Like I say, it's unusual for me to leave any area of my subject without pencil pigment down, because if I was doing this on pastel map, then obviously I'd cover the whole area. But here, no, we are leaving the black areas plain black. This is down to real time again now. You can just see at what speed that I am actually working, and how soft and gentle I am still using and sweeping that pencil. Now we're going to come in, remember I said about we were going to come back to our nose area, then we'll go down over our mouth and muzzle, and of course we need to get our whiskers in. And just to show now, so we brought it to sort of 90% completion to allow for then us to go back in and balance everything, work that final texture, smooth things out, add in a few extra highlights. Probably going to go in and enhance the colour a little bit more as well down over the nose, and then soften it back. It's all a little bit patchy in there still at the moment, and I want it looking shiny and glossy and soft and rich. So again, back to using those small little circular motions, keeping my pencil on the sheet. Just using the warm grey here just to soften everything, lift the highlights. Not taking it all over though, just lifting those little patchy lit areas. Again, I'm not using much pressure here either. You can just see how light a touch I'm using and how much pigment is still leaving there. Just flicking between my reference images there. Okay, onto this nose, it does sink away into darkness, so really look at your reference image very close, just where there's a hint. Remember, if you put too much highlight in, we can knock it back with those midtones and with our black. But we do need to give it some definition and some shape. And obviously the impression that it is the mouth and muzzle of a cat. Okay, apologies, just gone off screen a tiny bit there. I am just feeling my way around those lines, cat's mouth. Apologies as well if the camera does wobble every now and again. It's the setup that I had because I was moving it around and zooming in and out to show you the grittiness of the paper. A couple of times the camera stand, the boom ended up just touching my drawing board, so as I was putting pressure on using the pencils, the vibrations were going through the boom and just making the camera wobble a tiny bit. You can see the richness and the depth building there now, just as soon as I brought in that dark indigo. It's a shame you guys have to view this piece through the lens of my camera and then through the screen of your device. It'd be lovely if you could all see the piece in reality. One for the scale and two for the texture, the richness and the softness of the lens of the pencil that built up onto the surface. I just find the scan makes it quite harsh. Obviously the video camera here at the moment, because I've got it quite brightly lit, it's quite reflective. So you can see my method of how I'm working, but it's not depicting true colour as to what the piece looks like in reality. I'm just using that purple mauve in there again now. Working it so gently, it's almost like, yep, it's a real cat, we don't want to disturb him. Just gently, gently tickle that nose. Little marks. As you can see there again, just repeating myself, but out of the darkest areas, we've got the dark indigo and our Caput Mortem violet. And that'll be the areas that then sink away into the black. Where I put some light flesh down there across the top of the side of the muzzle. I just knocked it back with the Caput Mortem violet. So now we've got our black, we're just going to go in, pop back in all of our shadow, take away anything that we don't want in there. Give it all some definition again. I can't express how light a touch I'm using here. If we go to the pressure test scale, then we're probably using about a 3. I'm literally just feeling my way, pushing that pencil. It's quite a big chunk of real time here, but I wanted to just include this so you get a good idea of just the sort of speed and the attention to the detail I was giving even on those areas of the video where I'd already sped up. Just dotting back in now. It looks like my carmine, which is the more pinky colour than the Venetian red. Okay, so once we've worked all of this nose area and the muzzle, then it'll bring us up to a point where I'll be happy to pop in those whiskers. Like I say, those whiskers will take a bit of work as well, because all of these colours that are running through the fur, as I pointed out earlier, they're also running through the whiskers. So don't just automatically assume that whiskers are all one shade. I quite often use 3 or 4 different pencils on whiskers. Yes, you have the most brightest lit highlight area you might use your bright white pencil for, but there is also still colour probably running through that, shadow, different shapes. I know this one's whiskers, some of them were quite sort of bendy and they weren't smooth, sleek, sharp, straight or swooping whiskers. Tiny little bit off screen there, but you can just see I'm just working around, softening back where there's too much highlight, drawing too much attention. We just want a hint of that fur underneath that chin. I'm just using the side of the nib again there as well. Just taking a huge chunk of that back to shadow again there now. Softening up over this cheek, making sure the shadow is sweeping out into it on either side. Just bringing in dark indigo there as well. You can see why I don't do a voiceover for the full real-time videos. It could be a long day. You get very sick of my voice as well, repeating myself over and over. But hopefully this little chunk here, this 15-minute chunk that I've popped in, just showing some of the working over the nose, how soft and gentle and respectful you need to be of the pencils, the surface, and of your subject. Okay, so that's bringing that area pretty much to completion. So the next thing we're going to do, very quickly, I just want to show you popping in the tail. I'm just going to mark out that first line again using one of our blues. And then I know I'll speed it up again in a little bit as well. It's just to show a hint of a tail. I was really dubious. Do I put the tail in? Don't I? Do I? Don't I? So I have put in a hint of a tail. I might still go back in. Like I say, he's still sat on my living room at the moment. I might just go and accentuate the highlights on the top a tiny bit. Or I may even put in a hint of the stone wall that he's resting his tail on, or then again I might not. I might just leave it as it is. It's just, his tail was there in the picture, I liked it, it added to the composition. So here again, we're just using the colours that we've used all the way throughout, and then we'll knock it all back with the black in a second once we've got a good hint of it in there. There we go, knocking it back. Just want to leave hint of the outline and the shape of the tail, the contour of the tail as it over the top where the highlight's hitting it a tiny little bit, a little bit of the texture. And that's pretty much it for the tail. Okay, so now super sharp pencil. Back in now, we're just popping our whiskers in. Again, have your paper so you can move it around now, so you can move it with the natural direction that your hand wants to move in. So you're flicking away. So if you want to spin your paper, you can spin your paper so you're not forcing your hand to move in an unnatural arc. You want the arc, there you go, I've just turned it around now, I want that sweeping arc to be as natural an action as possible. Apologies for my hair getting in the way again. I will be scooping it back and gelling it at this rate for any future videos. Okay, just stop there just to sharpen my pencil up a tiny bit again. Here I'm adding in some lines myself, but I am following some of the indentation lines that we had there right from the beginning, where we transferred our line drawing over. So once I've got them in, I'm just going to mark in some of the brighter highlight areas. Then we'll also pop in some of the colour that's running through those, I nearly said lashes then, through those whiskers. And anywhere that's gone slightly over the edge that I didn't want it to go over the edge, I can take it back with the black or with one of my dark colours. So a tiny bit of the Venetian red there going in places. Yeah, just look closely at your reference and you should see these colours and the highlights and the shape of all of the whiskers. So you'll understand why I'm doing it this way. They're not just bright white whiskers or grey whiskers or black whiskers even. The light's catching and reflecting in the whiskers just as much as it is through the fur. So I need lots of a sky blue just for some of the highlights. And then we just go in with our black and just pop in or eradicate anywhere where the lines have gone over or slightly too wide. You can just edit them back again, a tiny little bit. It's not much, again, it's just little touches. It just enhances the depth of that shadow underneath those whiskers as well. Really makes them pop forward. Now I'm going in with the white and the grey, just adding in the super highlight areas. A little bit more of the black. Sink back the shadows. So just keep your pencils really sharp here. Last thing you want to be doing is putting down a really wide line for a whisker when you want it nice and sharp and pointy. So there we are. So now the last thing to do is we are going in with our slice, our knife, and just taking it back. So remember, this will go back to black, so anywhere that I want a tiny bit more texture, I'm just using my ceramic knife just to add in a little bit of fur texture in places. I didn't use it very much on here actually, just a few little lines. I just wanted to break up the pencil a little bit more and add a tiny little bit of texture in there. Just slow it down for you here, just so you can see what I'm actually doing with my slice. And that is pretty much it. We're coming right to the end of the series of videos now. So any questions, please do ask. And thank you very much for watching. And those in the $10 tier, you will be getting your written tutorial that will sit alongside this as well. And there you go. There is our black magic, our black cat. Thank you.